Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's had a wonderful beginning of their week. We are going to pick right back up on 15 and 21. We're going to actually get through Mark tonight and be starting Luke on Thursday. So let's go ahead and get going. Now, if you remember, we've already gone through the trial. So now Jesus is making his way to Golgotha. Starting verse 21, it says, "A certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way in from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross. They brought Yeshua to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, and they gave him wine spiced with myrrh, but he didn't take it. Then they nailed him to the execution stake, and they divided his clothes among themselves, throwing dice to determine what each man should get. It was 9 in the morning when they nailed him to the cross. Over his head, the written notice of the charge against him read, 'The King of the Jews.'" And this is actually right in with prophecy, how they parted his garments and everything.
Yeah.
On execution crosses beside him, they placed two robbers, one on his right and one on the left. People passing by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "Aha, so you can destroy the temple, can you, and rebuild it in 3 days? Save yourself, come down from the cross." Likewise, the head Kohanim and the Torah teachers made fun of him, saying to each other, "He saved others, but he can't save himself." And so he's the Messiah, is he? The King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross. If we see that, then we'll believe him. Even the men nailed up with him insulted him. They were ridiculing him throughout the whole ordeal, and then even on the cross, they're saying if he can come down, then we'll believe.
Right.
You know, let's set aside the miracles that he did, like making eyes for a man that had no eyes. The deaf heard, the mute spoke, the blind saw, the lame walked, leprosy was cleansed.
And the
Turned,
dead came out of the tomb.
dead came out of the tomb. Water turned to wine. But no, we're not going to believe you until you come off that cross.
Right.
Ay, ay, ay. At noon, darkness covered the whole land until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And by the way, this is actually historically documented that this actually happened. That the darkness actually happened in Israel at this time. It is biblical and historical. At 3, he uttered a loud cry, "Elio, Elio, lama which I'll just do English. My God, why have you forsaken me?" On hearing this, some of the bystanders said, "Look, he's calling for Elijah, for Elihu, for the Father." I'm just going to go right to English on some of these words, folks. They're just really tough for me to try to pronounce. One ran and soaked a sponge in vinegar, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink. "Wait," he said, "let's see if um, Yahweh will come and take him down." But Yeshua let out a loud cry, gave up his spirit, and the veil in the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. When the Roman officer stood facing him, saw the way he gave up his spirit, he said, "This man really was Son of God." Understand that veil was, number one, it was a tapestry, a very heavy, thick, woven tapestry that was probably at least, 15, 20 feet high in the temple at that time.
Probably.
And it was torn from the top to the bottom. Number one, you can't rip it like this anyway.
No.
Because of how thick it was and tightly woven, but it was rendered from the top to the bottom, and only the Father could have done that. What he did when he did that is he exposed the lie. Also, he exposed the fact that we can now go directly to him without having to go through the priest. Because
We pray to him in his Son's name.
Yeshua is our high priest now.
Right.
So we can go to the Father directly through Yeshua, through the blood. And that's the point of the veil being torn. That's the significance of that. That's what that means. That's why it is so vividly set in here for you to read it, that they say it was torn from top to bottom. There were women and men looking on from a distance. Among them were Mary from Magdala, Mary the mother of the younger uh, James and Yosi, and Shemot. And these women had followed him and helped him when he was in Galilee, and many other women were there who had come up with him to Jerusalem. Since it was preparation day, that is the day before Shabbat, as evening approached, Yusuf of Ramatarian, a prominent member of the Sanhedrin, who himself was also looking forward to the kingdom of God, went boldly to Pilate and asked for Yeshua's body. Pilate was surprised to hear that he was already dead. So he summoned the officer and asked him if he had been dead a while. After he had gotten confirmation from the officer that Yeshua was dead, he granted Yusuf the corpse. Yusuf purchased a linen sheet, and after taking Yeshua down, he wrapped him in the linen sheet, laid him in a tomb which had been cut out of the rock, and rolled a stone against the entrance to the tomb. Mary of Magdala and Miriam the mother saw where he had been laid. I love the detail there. The linen cloth, the Shroud of Turin. But they're so direct on mentioning the fact that he purchased this linen cloth new to wrap the body in.
Right. And Pilate made extra sure he was dead.
Oh yes, Pilate made extra sure he was dead by having the Roman guard shove a spear.
Yes.
Normally they'd go and break the legs of the men on the cross to make them die quicker, when it was going to be like it was Shabbat. It was getting ready to be Shabbat. So, but when they come across Jesus, they said he's already dead, and so they shoved a spear, and it went in up through his rib cage and into the heart at an angle, and water and blood poured out together. Well, it was just pink water.
I think Pilate might have believed he truly was the Messiah.
I think so. But
Because he
hard to
wanted
say.
to really be sure
He was dead.
Before he put him in that.
Right. So now we're going to go into 16. When Shabbat was over, Mary of Magdala and Mary the mother of got the hiccups. Mary the mother of Yaakov and Shlomit bought spices in order to go and anoint Yeshua. Very early the next day, just after sunrise, they went to the tomb. They were asking each other, "Who will roll away the stone from the entrance to the tomb for us?" They looked up and saw the stone, even though it was huge, had been rolled back already. On entering the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right, and they were dumbfounded. But he said, "Don't be surprised. You're looking for Yeshua from Nazareth, who was executed on the cross. He has risen. He's not here. Look at the place where they laid him. But go and tell his Talmudim, especially Peter, that he is going to the Galilee ahead of you. You will see him there, just as he told you." Trembling but ecstatic, they went out and fled from the tomb, and they said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. When Yeshua rose early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary of Magdala, from whom he expelled the 7 demons. She went and told those who had been with him as they were crying and mourning. But when they heard that he was alive and that she had seen him, they wouldn't believe it. After that, Yeshua appeared in another form to 2 of them as they were walking into the country. They went.
The thing with Mary Magdalene,
She was the first to go and tell.
she was the first to go and tell. She spoke the gospel.
Right. Mark doesn't put it the same way that the others put it,
No,
but it's
that's
still.
what she did.
There's other details that the other books will pick up on. But when these 2 realized it was him walking with them, they ran and told the others, but they didn't believe them either. 4 people told him now.
Right.
And even he told them, "Meet me in Galilee on the 3rd day." Later, Yeshua appeared to the 11 as they were eating, and he reproached them for their lack of trust and their spiritual insensitivity in not having believed those who had seen him after he had risen. Then he said to them, as you go throughout the world, proclaim the good news to all creation. Whoever trusts and is immersed will be saved. Whoever does not trust will be condemned. And these signs will accompany those who do trust in my name. They will drive out demons, speak with new tongues, not be injured if they handle snakes or drink poison, and heal the sick by laying hands on them. So then, after he had spoken to them, the Lord Yeshua was taken up into heaven and sat at the right hand of God, and they went out and proclaimed everywhere, the Lord working with them and confirming the message by accompanying the signs. Okay, Mark just kind of touches all of this.
Right, because he was not an eyewitness.
He was not a
He's going on
true
what
eyewitness to all of it. He's going on. He did see some of this stuff,
Right,
but not all
but
of it.
not-
He definitely saw the arrest and he saw the Last Supper.
Right, he saw that.
But some of this stuff is going on what he was told from the others. So you can tell it's just kind of he's just kind of skimming over it. Matthew and John get more detailed into these events.
They're very precise.
And more precise into what happens, especially during the Passion Week. I mean, Mark is a good book. It's kind of helps get you familiar with
it's a good book.
what's going on.
But Matthew's my favorite.
Matthew is probably my favorite too. I mean, I love John, but Matthew is just
Matthew he had all
the lineage.
And all of that, which when I'm reading it, that drives me crazy trying to pronounce
Right.
some of that stuff.
Luke has a lineage also, but it's
still
yeah.
very precise and very informative.
Right. And it's funny when we get into Luke Thursday. Humorous because a lot of people read Luke because you can read one chapter a day leading up to Christmas. And my wife said, I don't want to read the chapters. The very chapter of her turn to read, it was the lineage. And she's like, that's light. It's quite humorous. But when we get into Luke, Luke is a good book also. And let me give you I can go ahead and give you a kind of an introduction to it. There's a disagreement about this because Luke was more than likely a Jew, possibly a convert. He displayed detailed understanding of the Hebrew Scriptures, as well as expressing an understanding of God-fearers, Gentiles who attended synagogues and lived lives informed by Judaism, but did not convert. Moreover, he addressed both his gospel and Acts to a Hebrew priest, Theophilus. If Luke were not a Jew, this would not make sense. So I believe he was a Messianic Jew also.
Right.
Luke writes to reassure Theophilus, a high priest, and thus socially significant figure, of the things he has learned. Luke shows him that all along God had a plan to include Gentiles, although the Gospel of Luke was originally written to an individual, or at least not dedicated to him. In time, it was circulated to others as a presentation of Yeshua and his ministry. Luke's major concern in the Gospel is to present Yeshua in the kingdom program of God as fulfilling his promises made long ago. In the ancient world, it was not what was new that was important in religion, but what was tested by time. And Luke argues that although Yeshua's movement seemed new, it actually fulfilled promises God made to Abraham. And Luke highlights the continuity between the promises of the Hebrew Scriptures and what took place through Yeshua. In Acts, his sequel volume, Luke shows how the ancient plan promised the inclusion of Gentiles. There's a far less discussion of legal matters in the Gospel of Luke than in Matthew and John, but the opposition Yeshua faced from certain Pharisees and other key Jewish leaders is treated in some detail. Luke highlights how Yeshua repeatedly urged those who opposed him to take note of how God was working through him. So we can see that Luke is giving he's given an eyewitness testimony, And I always thought Luke was not an eyewitness, but he's giving an eyewitness testimony to a high priest. He's writing about it to a high priest. And the chosen actually represents Luke as Matthias, Nicodemus's
Right.
aide,
Right.
who goes and reports what he sees to Nicodemus. And Nicodemus is actually, he's mentioned in the Bible, but at this point, he's at where he has Matthias doing that, he's actually representing Theophilus. So I learned something new through some of this stuff. It's really cool. That's why these studies are important. They do bring new insight to the historical context of the Bible. And so we will see you all Thursday night, 7 o'clock, and we will begin Luke. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful evening. God bless. I did not share that to the